Well, since about 2010, EHRI has been implemented essentially as a series of ad hoc projects, and they have been carried out by a consortium of 27 institutions from 17 countries. And from the very beginning, this consortium has tried to overcome the enormous fragmentation of Holocaust resources. And it has done that by essentially developing a research infrastructure that offers both physical and virtual access to these dispersed Holocaust archives. So fundamentally, I think the dispersal and fragmentation of Holocaust archives is such, they disperse to such an extent that it can only be really tackled via a long-term investment and a long-term program of activities. And if you like, I can give you a few examples of that. So one of the things we have been doing since 2010 is offer a fellowship program which allows researchers to access Holocaust archives across Europe. And what we found is that every year we get more applications for that program. And I think this really demonstrates that this is a long-term need that can only be solved via long-term investment, via a long-term program. And I think the same goes also with our digital infrastructure that we have built. I think it's well known that digital environments, they start to decay very quickly unless you have constant investment and constant updates. So the data that we have integrated about Holocaust archives needs constantly to be curated, it needs to be refreshed, software components need to be updated, and again, that implies permanent investment. But I think there might also be a third reason why we need a permanent European Holocaust research infrastructure, and this is a more political one. So I think it's true to say that the Holocaust is really a defining moment in the development of modern Europe. And to an extent, this is already reflected on an institutional level as well. So in many European countries, we have excellent institutions that are dedicated to Holocaust research and to Holocaust archive, such as Sigisoma in Belgium, for instance. But I think if you compare these institutions, these European institutions, to the globally leading ones, say Yad Vashem in Israel or the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in the United States, they really pale in size and in significance. And I think, given the importance of the Holocaust to Europe, it's also important that this is reflected on a European level institutionally. And this is what the permanent EHRI organization will achieve, a European umbrella organization that brings together all the existing excellent institutions. Well, I think the first milestones that we reached in that process was reached in 2018, when EHRI was added to the roadmap of ESFRI, which stands for the European Strategy Forum on Research Infrastructure. And what this roadmap really does, it just identifies infrastructures that, according to the European Commission, are so important that they should be implemented as permanent European organizations. And by being added to that roadmap back in 2018, we then also had access to dedicated European funding to prepare that permanent organization. And that's what we have been doing over the last 3 years. And this process of preparing the organization is coming to an end now. And what we really achieved is we identified the EHRI, which stands for European Research Infrastructure Consortium, as the most suitable legal form for this permanent European organization. And maybe one of the most important features of an EHRI is that it's a consortium of states, of countries. And so what we have now, we have all the documents that we need for an application to establish an EHRI. And importantly, we have the commitment of 10 countries to become founding members of this EHRI. So we are hoping that early next year, we will be able to submit an EHRI application to the European Commission, and then we will need roughly 2 years' time to really set up that EHRI and to make it operational. And I think that means overall that we hope that in January 2025, we will be able to formally launch this new European Holocaust Research Infrastructure as a permanent organization. And of course, that's an important symbolic date as well, because that will be the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz.